tops trials. This is about the talc liabilities. The Johnson & Johnson Corporation is not in bankruptcy protection, and its stock is up 0.7% in pre-market trading now. Our digital producer is Redmond Carolipio. Our engineers are Jay Siebold and Jessen Dueller. I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Baptist Health is a proud sponsor of First Coast Connect with Melissa Ross.
ViStar Credit Union is proud to be a production underwriter of First Coast Connect's Friday Roundtable. ViStar, we never forget it's your money. On the web at vistarcu.org.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
It's the biggest stories from this week. A controversial spending plan is approved by the City Council, as is $114 million in incentives for Shad Khan's Four Seasons development, and more trash talk as the city's recycling and garbage woes continue. I'm Brendan Rivers, sitting in for Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour, we'll take a look back at the week's top stories with our First Coast Connect Friday Media Roundtable. Then later in the hour, healing the First Coast through an innovative instrument called the Handpan. That's all ahead after the day's news.
It's a minute after 9 o'clock. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Michelle Coram. Friends and families are going to come together at Smalls Park on Jacksonville's north side on Sunday to remember those that they've lost to COVID-19. Betty Burney is a member of the Jacksonville COVID Task Force, the organization behind the Day of Remembrance, Hope, and Unity. Burney says small flags will cover the ball field representing the nearly 3,000 people who've died of the coronavirus in Jacksonville.
I hope what the families take away is that they are not alone, that people care, and that we want them to understand that we feel their loss. Because, you see the numbers on television, and you hear it, and you see numbers and numbers and numbers, but there are people behind those numbers.
Burney says she also hopes that people who have not gotten vaccinated will be encouraged to go ahead and get a free shot while they're there. There will also be a food giveaway for families struggling to put food on their table. And the Day of Remembrance starts at 2 Sunday afternoon at Smalls Park on Myrtle Avenue. Masks and social distancing are going to be required. Free food's being distributed in Jacksonville Saturday, that's tomorrow, for households facing food insecurity. School board member Lori Hershey and City Councilman Terrence Freeman will be joining Farm Share to give out fresh produce and non-perishables Saturday morning at Twin Lakes Academy Elementary School on the city's south side. The distribution will run from 9 o'clock until supplies run out. And right now, it is 70 degrees in Jacksonville. We got a nice morning. It's going to be a hot afternoon, reaching the upper 80s today, mostly sunny for your Friday. Saturday, mostly sunny, upper 80s with a 30 to 40% chance of showers. Breezy tomorrow from the west.
A controversial spending plan is approved by the City Council, as is $114 million in incentives for Shad Khan's Four Seasons development. And more trash talk as the city's recycling and garbage woes continue. Those are just some of the stories making headlines this week. Good morning, this is First Coast Connect. I'm Brendan Rivers, sitting in for Melissa Ross. Thanks for listening. And just ahead, all the top stories of the week with our Friday Roundtable. Listen on the radio or watch the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and on demand at Jack's PBS Passport. Then later, healing the First Coast through an innovative instrument called the hand pan. But first, it's Friday, and here to discuss a busy news week, we welcome WJCT News reporter Claire Heddles. Good morning, Claire. We also have A.G. Gankarski of Florida Politics on the line. Good morning, A.G.
How you doing?
Good. Good to hear from you. And we also have with us this morning Tim Gibbons of the Jacksonville Business Journal. Good morning, Tim.
Good to be here.
All right, lots to talk about this week, and we'll go to your calls in a moment. If you want to get on the show, the phone number is 549-2937. Again, that's 549-2937. But we're going to begin with our top story. On Tuesday this week, the Jacksonville City Council approved a $4.6 million COVID relief spending plan for a group of hand-picked organizations in a 15-2 vote. About a third of the groups receiving money have financial, personal, or professional ties to the council member who chose them. Again, the number is 549-2937. Claire, you've been reporting on this. Get us up to speed on what's been happening with this COVID relief money and tell us why people are upset about the process.
So this was $4.6 million in COVID relief money that council set aside this summer for themselves to distribute at a later date. And that distribution plan ended up being each council member got a set amount and they could split it between two organizations or give it to one. And the way that plan was developed really had no public input. It was just told to council members by council president and the finance chair. So what we heard from council members was that they were just told, go find two organizations, and the public didn't really know that that money was available unless they had a council member tell them. So for some council members, they told as many people as they could. They kind of had an open application process. Other council members picked people they knew, people they were on the boards of, people that they were friends with, just because they only had a few weeks. So there was some controversy over whether that was the best way to pick organizations. But in the end, it did pass, and only two council members voted against the proposal.
And AG, how does this process that Claire is describing, how does it compare to how the city usually handles the distribution of grant money?
Well, there's a number of differences. Usually we have public service grants. That's a competitive process. We usually don't do single source bidding. We usually don't do council people handing out money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their slush funds to people they've done political business with. We usually don't get council people at 11:30 at night defending their decisions, saying things like, who knows our constituents better than we do, like Randy DeFore. There were a lot of red flags here, and I know red flags are like the big meme this week, but I saw a bunch of them. It was like Charlie Crist's tweet. It was something where they didn't think anybody was looking, and they said what was on their mind. They said they had the right to do it. And that's what it came down to. Matt Carlucci, Rory Diamond, to their credit, they said they didn't like the process. They voted against it. But you got 15 people there who walked into a political trap. They voted to basically appropriate a slush fund in the dead of night, and as they run for their offices, whether it's for re-election for council or for mayor or for property appraiser or for supervisor of elections, for whatever office they want, this vote is going to haunt them.
And Tim, as AG mentioned, Councilman Carlucci and Diamond have spoken up against this. Can you tell us what are they saying and what are they proposing?
Well, so the political side of that's a little outside of my bailiwick, but I know in talking to local nonprofits over the past couple of weeks, the issue that they really have is that lack of knowledge, that the entire setup for how grants have been done in the past is literally designed to try to take politics out of it as much as possible. Nobody is naive enough to think that politics don't play a role in every time the city gives out money. But the idea that just kind of blatantly saying, no, you have to be politically well connected, has many in the nonprofit world in Jacksonville, pretty ticked off, because there are, as you can imagine, many nonprofits who have seen rising needs over the course of the pandemic and falling donations, and the organizations that were helped through these grants are far and away not the only ones who need more assistance.
And Claire, I believe Councilman Diamond has proposed specific legislation to deal with this. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there is legislation that they'll take up in the coming weeks that would add some more oversight procedures to how funds are distributed. But some people are saying it's a little bit too late. It's a little after the fact, after they've given out all this money. Now they're saying maybe in the future we need to add some oversight. But that wasn't really discussed on Tuesday when they voted on this.
And when did the process for these grant distributions start? How long has this been going on? Do you know?
So for this particular pot of money, they were told August 19th, you need to find 2 organizations, and then they had 3 weeks to submit those names. So it was about mid-September when the city got the names of the organizations. They did some vetting, but the city really has not provided any details about what that vetting process was, either during the council meeting or in response to questions from us. So yeah, it was about a month and a half ago.
Okay. And when did Councilman Diamond file his legislation? Do you know?
He filed it in, about 3 weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting development. I think it's pretty obvious why people are upset about how this process has played out. But staying on the topic of city council, on Tuesday, the full council voted unanimously to grant $114 million in public incentives for a proposed development at Metropolitan Park from developer and Jaguars owner Shad Khan. Tim, can you tell us a bit about this proposed development?
Sure. It's something that obviously the Jaguars are very excited about. So there's actually 2 projects that have moved forward this week. The council voted on the incentives for the what will be a hotel and medical complex over on what is being called the Shipyards. If you want to be pedantic about it, it's actually part of Kids Campus next to Shipyards, but I've given up that fight. Everybody's got to call it the Shipyards. I guess that's the Shipyards now. But the idea is that the plan will actually include the hotel, which obviously is the major part of it. It doesn't have to be a 4 Seasons, but it has to be a 5-star luxury hotel with at least 170 rooms, at least 23 Class A condominiums, as well as meeting space, restaurant and bar space. It's something that's designed to really try to get a luxury crowd downtown, for games or for other things. We have on our website today the newest renderings of that project, which they're renderings. Renderings are easy to make fancy, but it looks pretty fancy. So. Yeah. The other thing that was approved by a downtown development review board yesterday, the other thing that they approved was the final plans for the Sports Performance Center. That's the $120 million project that the city is paying half of. And again, it looks fancy. It looks like something that will attract pedestrian traffic and interest and resonance. And the Jaguars are issuing a call for artists to do 2 public art installation sort of things at that project. So they're really trying to activate that entire stretch of the riverfront.
And AG, this all seems oddly familiar. How does this proposal fit into the recent history of attempts to develop downtown Jacksonville?
Well, I mean, redevelopment of downtown Jacksonville, that's something that's been in play for 50 years and it started collapsing in the 70s. But it's funny. You think about this projected 4 seasons. You go back about 20 years to when Jacksonville hosted the Super Bowl, and a big issue was they didn't have rooms to put people in. You had people on cruise ships in the river and things like that. Jacksonville's a national laughingstock. We haven't had a Super Bowl since. And that's kind of the thing. It's like we use an NFL team aspirationally. Basically, we reached beyond our grasp when we got the team in the 90s. We didn't expect that team in the 90s. We didn't really have the downtown for that team in the 90s. And today we still don't have that team. And, we're at a really great place right now. Things are really aspirational at this moment. But, when I look at renderings that Shad Khan puts out, I think of the Sydney Opera House that Daley's place was supposed to be. You look at Daley's place, it's the world's biggest tool shed. And yet it was supposed to be the Sydney Opera House. So these like space age Jaguars of the future. This is a guy that put a stamp of approval on Urban Meyer and Val Sherman's character. So, we see the renderings there too, and we see the reality, and hopefully we get more of what we want out of this deal.
That was the knock on the sports performance facility, the downtown development review board. First compared it to an airplane hangar, as just a giant space. And there is that fear. I will say that there is absolutely a fear amongst those who are interested in downtown development. As an old editor of mine used to say, it's much cheaper to do renderings than it is to build something. And you can make those things look as fancy as you want. And I think there will be, people really felt burned on Daly's Place because it was supposed to be, a stunning architectural thing. And I think that was a overpromise and underdeliver. I don't think that there's any problem with Daly's Place, but it wasn't what people were expecting. Expectations are high for both of these projects.
Yeah. And I'm being told that we have Fred Matthews on the line, blogger and regular contributor. Fred, are you there with us?
Finally, star power.
Yes, I'm here.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
All right, there we go.
Thanks for
Yeah, I'm
joining
here.
us. Thanks for joining us, Fred.
Interesting conversation. I didn't think it was so much of an airplane hangar. But it's an outdoor. I felt like I was outdoors more than indoors when I go to Daly's Place. But it's another place to have a show right across the street from the Veterans Arena. But look, this is Shad Khan's vision. And, I've long called it, all of that down there to be Conland is what we should name it as you enter into it. And if you've ever visited the Dallas Cowboys complex just outside of Dallas, you can see a bit of the vision that Khan may have had for what he's doing down there. I mean, it will all be a bit Jaguars, and everybody can stay there all the time and have entertainment there all the time. I mean, the city has already given him just about everything he wanted, and he does, after all, have a lot of his own skin in the game, especially for this one. That's what makes this Four Seasons deal and Shipyards deal a little more attractive than the last deal, is because he has a lot of his money involved in this. It'll just be interesting to see if in fact he ever becomes a citizen here. Maybe you guys already know about that. If he's a citizen here in Jacksonville yet, whether he may decide to run for office or something like that, I don't know, because all of that will basically be under his realm when it comes to fruition. But how successful it's going to be, it is just anybody's guess when you consider what's happening at the town center on the south side of town, how big that development is. And they just announced a new hotel is going to come up out there shortly to keep people out that way. And of course, what they're doing in St. Johns County at Nocatee, and what they've done there and are attempting to expand that with. And the folks on Wells Road announced this week down at Orange Park, they want to expand that to keep people in their county, with the exception of coming up here for a Jaguar game. But we bought into it now. It's too late. It's already done. We've torn down bridges, made ramps. I don't know what you guys at Channel 7 are going to eventually do. They're going to give us a route to get to the station eventually. They talked about it. What? But this is all one guy's major vision to put his stamp on our town, and we've allowed it to happen.
All right, we've got a caller on the line I want to get to. We have Linda in Mandarin. Good morning, Linda. Go ahead.
Good morning. I would like, it's so frustrating. The city council and the mayor and Shad Khan are incrementally, I guess they think citizens can't do math. So we're paying half of this training facility. We're doing half of his hotel. Did we do half of the Hyatt? And we're going to have to do upgrades to the stadium. Yet, I can't get trash picked up. I can't recycle anymore. I'm being told that non-degradable plastic has to go in the landfill forever and ever. And then later on, they'll bulldoze it and put some, Habitat for Humanity place there. And city council and the mayor aren't coming out and selling this to us. They're just passing legislation like they know better. It's very, it is very frustrating and humiliating to have leadership like this. That you're right. We have somebody who seemed to buy a football team to get access to the real estate asset to the city because we haven't had a winning team since he bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want somebody to kind of figure out why I can't get $150 impact fee back, but yet we're doling out money. And guess what, people? We're going to have to borrow this money. We don't have this money in Jacksonville. We're going to have to borrow the money to give to a billionaire. It's nonsensical.
All right. Thank you very much for your call, Linda. Claire, so we'll get more into the recycling thing in a little bit, but I think Linda really is kind of making a point that I'm hearing from a lot of people in Jacksonville. They find it very frustrating that the city is willing to give so much money to wealthy developers like Shad Khan when there are so many essential needs that aren't being met for residents.
Yeah, I think she brings up a great question about who does this benefit. It's a development for tourists to come visit Jacksonville, which could benefit the local businesses, but what does it really do for the residents that live in downtown or in the surrounding area, or people that live in Jacksonville permanently? Is a hotel truly the best thing for our residents? And that's something that I feel like hasn't really been discussed seriously in the committee meetings or council meetings about this proposal, is whether a hotel is really what would best benefit our residents right now.
Yeah, I feel like the optics of this, of having this recycling situation and this development incentives package being approved at the same time, is kind of makes it seem as if the city council feels as if it's more important to have these business developments downtown than to meet the needs of its citizens. It's not a great look, I don't think. We have another caller on the line. We have John in Jacksonville. Good morning, John. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. You know, it gets frustrating to hear callers like the previous lady who talked about being frustrated with the vision of downtown. Here's the secret. It's not for you. It's for people that want to come into Jacksonville. Sean Khan has a vision of bringing people downtown, not just taxpayers from Jacksonville, but people from all over. And it seems like we being taxpayers in Jacksonville and Duval County, let's be honest, we're undertaxed. It's like we want to live and eat steak and lobster on Taco Bell money. We cannot always group what Jacksonville and what all these people that come in town want for a vision of Jacksonville. If we don't have that talk and have that conversation about upgrading, changing the milling rate, I would love for them to tax me an extra dollar if it means that it's going to clean up our city and get all these infrastructure projects done. But we can't always say, hey, somebody wants to come into Jacksonville and build a hotel, and then we as taxpayers get all, oh, my goodness, now we can't get this and we can't get trash picked up. Well, exactly, because the minute they start wanting to raise our tax to fund all these projects, we're in a big fancy. So I hope this gets built. Sean Khan, do it. I'll be down there. I'm supporting anything that Jags, anybody wants to come in to change the vision of Jacksonville. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your call, John. Yeah, I think City Council and Shad Khan definitely hope and think that this will be beneficial for downtown Jacksonville. Tim, in your reporting, have you seen any sort of developments like this really be beneficial for the areas where they're built?
Yeah, and I mean, all stadium sort of projects have an embedded question in them of how valuable are they, and you have to kind of tease out the different bits. Generally, across the country, the public investment in stadiums, and I'm being really specific here that we're talking about the actual facility, are not necessarily net money makers. The same way convention centers aren't, generally speaking, net money makers. The idea, though, is that you are generating spin-off effects that have a halo of success around the area. So if you have a bunch of people who come downtown for a game, are they going to spend money in other businesses who are taxed? Are they going to try to get into the Four Seasons and that books up, so they go to the Hyatt or they go to another hotel? Can we have bigger events here because we have more hotel space? The general idea is that having development will spur more economic activity. I think the last caller made a really interesting point, which is we always kind of have this, we always make the conversation a dichotomy of, should we have development? Should the city incentivize things, or should it pick up trash. And I think the problem is that we live in a very low tax environment where the money that would go to pick up trash in other cities isn't being collected from the citizens. And you could have an a yes and sort of situation where we both incentivize development, which will bring more people in, which will grow the tax base, and we maybe have to raise that tax base a bit so that we can pay for these services that the city desperately needs.
All right, I'm going to take another caller. We have Tom on the west side who disagrees with the previous caller. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Yes, I just think that as the citizens of Jacksonville pay taxes here, they ought to be top of the line when it comes to allocating the city's resources. We should have maintained that area as a public park for citizens to access the river. I think that would have been the best possible use for public lands there. And as we're talking about the garbage tax, the thing I think we need to remember is the citizens don't want a rebate for the most part from COVID relief funds. What we really want is the refuse picked up.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for your call, Tom. Yeah, I think that really kind of echoes what we're hearing from a lot of people these days when it comes to these issues. AG, do you want to field a response to Tom?
What he's talking about here is a breakdown of the social compact. I mean, government is intended to provide basic services. One of them is garbage pickup, public safety, garbage pickup, these things. And the fact that they can't do this while they are allocating their slush funds, while they're allocating incentives to, Jaguars and Shad Khan and all of that. I mean, it's not like there's going to be a recycling drop-off point at the Four Seasons. And, that kind of illustrates the point here. It's, it's kind of like we're props. The city is props in these development schemes. And, it's a big bet on the NFL. I mean, is the NFL going to keep growing? Is Shad Khan ever going to put a winning product on the field that's going to draw people? Because all these things you build downtown, but if the team is 2-15 year after year, you can say, but Trevor Lawrence, it's hard to see it that way. So I want to see more commitment from Shad Khan, basically, but I'm not expecting it because, if you look at this political process, like the 2019 election, for example, had the lowest turnout in years in Jacksonville. So that's part of the reason that city leaders don't really feel accountable is because people didn't show up the last time around, and so many of these people running for something else this next time around, so there's no accountability in terms of re-election campaigns. So it's kind of easy to move these things forward.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there, AG. Things are not going to change unless we get a decent number of people who turn out and vote for a change. So recycling keeps coming up. Let's move on. That's our next topic. So this week we learned that Jacksonville's recycling mess could continue for 6 months or even longer. We also learned that Jacksonville homeowners could see a $12 a month off their property taxes as a refund for the city's trash collection problems. Claire, I believe you've done quite a bit of reporting on this. Can you explain what's happening with the recycling situation here in Jacksonville for anyone who may not be familiar?
Yeah, so we learned these two things this week, that the mayor had originally planned with his staff that this would take a maximum of 6 months. The chief administrative officer told council Tuesday that is the goal, but he cannot guarantee it. So we really don't know how long that'll be, but at some point they plan to re-implement recycling pickup. It seems unlikely it'll be before 6 months from now. Leading up to this, there was over 97,000 complaints from residents about their trash pickup, far more than last year. The contracted trash pickup companies have been fined almost $1 million, or their contracts have changed a little bit in that they're being paid less, to the tune of about $1 million for the delays. So there have been, and everyone's been seeing it in their yards, these trash pickup problems. So the 15 new recycling sites were set up last week. Last week we saw all kinds of trash at these sites, not just recycling. And so another thing we learned this week is that they've started going to those twice a day now, clearing them out, and anything on the ground around those bins is going to be just thrown in the trash and not sorted. And what's actually in the bins is hopefully being taken to recycling, but with trash bags in there and people just throwing whatever they want in, it's not quite clear if it's even going to recycling.
And I believe the city's saying this issue is due to staff shortages that are perhaps tied to the pandemic. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that is one other thing we learned this week. The city said that they have raised wages a bit for some of their haulers, and contractors have said they've raised wages a bit. That hasn't been one of the main priorities earlier on when they allocated COVID relief funds towards treating the trash problems. The city told me that they weren't raising wages. Just this week, Chief Administrative Officer Brian Hughes said they had adjusted wages slightly, but that doesn't seem to be the biggest priority in bringing in more staffing, though it might be a solution that may be more effective. But.
Yeah, Fred, I want to go to you. Has Jacksonville in the past had to suspend essential services like this?
No, not as badly as this. Is certainly nothing as essential as trash pickup. This is new business. But look, Jacksonville is victim to what is happening nationwide with trucking, with trash pickup, with everything that has to do with personnel. There are people who, we've had an issue, when the city controlled trash pickup. I don't think we had very many complaints about it. But somebody along the line about 30 years ago decided it was better to, as everything goes with the conservative administration, decided it was better to go ahead and farm this out to commercial companies, take this off of the government roll so that the government didn't control it, and make sure that a company can make some money off of trash pickups. And here we sit, they can't pick up the trash. They don't have enough people. The other part of it, of course, as we've already discussed some time ago, is that we only have one place to dump trash around Jacksonville. We only have one landfill that they can go to. And of course, who wants to have their kid to grow up to be a trash hauler, to be the person that jumps out of the back of the truck and pick up the cans and dump it in? This idea about putting in these decentralized recycling places around town was a disaster waiting to happen. Anyone could have predicted that folks were going to do exactly what they're doing. Oh, there's a place for me to dump it? They're going to take it there and dump it. We've had people for years. How many old tires are sitting in empty lots because the guys who drive by and dump their tires in the lot and drive off? They've been doing that for years, and we've had plan after plan to fix that, but we can't. You can put tires by your door. I think you're allowed 4 at a time for them to pick up, and that hasn't worked. So this thing was obvious from the get-go that it was going to fail. Look, they're going to have to hire more trash haulers. The city may have to take this on themselves and actually get people involved. Yes, we may have to pay some inmates that are working that in the city. We may have to pay them a wage to help back this process up. We've got to get all hands on deck. We're going to get this trash picked up. Otherwise, yes, it's going to drag on for several months because we only have one place to dump trash. We don't have efficient trash haulers. By the way, my trash guy is coming out right now to pick up my stuff. I hear him outside. They only have one or two companies to do this work, and they can't get enough people hired to do it. This is going to be a long-term thing going on. It's not going to be solved anytime soon.
And Tim, I think we've only got you for a few more minutes here, so I want to get to you real quick. What have you found in your reporting on this issue?
Well, I mean, you have private recycling companies that have started trying to, or are seeing a lot of uptick in their customers because there are lots of people who want to recycle. You also have businesses who, as you can imagine, are just complaining about the entire system around this. They pay their fees and they want the service they paid for. I think to Fred's point, there is the reality that it's really easy to blame this on COVID and blame it on the labor force disruption that's hitting a lot of businesses, and that is definitely kind of the precipitating factor right now. But it's important not to lose sight of the fact that there's a bunch of other inputs that are causing this. The utter lack of landfill space and the NIMBYism of I don't want a landfill, I don't want a waste sorting facility in my backyard. That's an issue. The low fees that we pay for garbage. Anytime you say there's a shortage because somebody can't pay more, what that means is that you're not willing to pay more. So again, it goes back to that idea of, do we need to have a do we need more money going into the city to pay for the essential services? And do we need to look at the infrastructure that we have and say we need a different setup if we are to fix this problem long term?
All right, and let's move on to our next topic. The Duval County School District is holding firm on its mask policy and the criteria used to lift it. Meanwhile, the school board is participating in a lawsuit along with several other school districts deemed non-compliant on the basis of home rule and autonomy when it comes to devising safety policies in their respective areas. AG, it seems like something new develops with this story every week. Can you quickly walk us through how we got to this point with COVID precautions in public schools here in Florida?
Well, I mean, basically it comes down to the DeSantis administration does not want mask mandates without parental opt-out. That was a position they eventually arrived at, and Duval and other places require medical opt-outs. I mean, that's the decision making here. The governor's office says there's no real difference in COVID transmission between mask and non-mask districts. Other people disagree. But, I mean, it's basically been that old discussion. It basically is the home rule discussion that locals always lose to the state. We see it on issues ranging from, fights about vacation rental zoning to things like that. And we're seeing it here. And, really what the DeSantis administration says is they say it's parents' rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they basically are agnostic on the question of whether or not a school district has the responsibility to provide for the welfare of those in its charge. I mean, that is the crux of the fight. And, what's really going to happen is that's going to resolve itself. I mean, the school district was advised not to take action last week by a city lawyer. And it was good advice because transmission rates are going down, case rates are going down, and eventually they'll meet the criteria where they can suspend the rule on their own, the rule that Duval County Schools set, and that could provide an exit from this whole thing. But, this is the back and forth we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic, with the governor who's trying to politicize the pandemic to build his political future, and a school board that by and large is just trying to, keep things operational in the school district.
And Claire, can you tell us a bit about this lawsuit that the Duval County School Board is involved in now?
This specific lawsuit is 6 school districts, and what they're saying is that the Department of Health didn't have the authority to pass this rule about parent choice. It's a September 22nd rule passed by the Department of Health that says parents must have sole discretion about whether their kids wear masks. And what the districts are arguing is that the Department of Health can only make rules about health. They can't make rules about what parents do and what sort of options they have that aren't specifically related to health. And what the attorney has told me is that beyond that, they can't make a rule that leads to the spread of a communicable disease, that actually doesn't prevent it at all. So that's their argument. The hearing starts next Thursday on the 21st, and when they'll present their arguments. What the school board said when they voted to make this legal challenge is that even if they lift the mask mandate, that's not what this is about. The school board members that were in favor of bringing a legal challenge said, we're probably going to lift our mandate soon, we're reaching our threshold, but we want to file a legal challenge either way because this is about local control. This isn't about just the mask mandate. Now this is about how much control we as a school board have over our community.
And listeners, again, if you want to join our conversation, the number is 549-2937. Tim, we've got you for just a few more minutes here. What's your take on this whole public school mask mandate fight that's going on?
So fortunately, I do not have to sit through school board meetings. I did that back earlier in my career, and God bless the reporters who are taking that on for the rest
Absolutely.
of us. But I will say this: one of the key things with the economy trying to get back to a place where we all want it to be is the issue of childcare, of child safety, of parents who are very concerned about not having their kids be sick. Obviously, the news about vaccinations for 5 years old or 12-year-olds will help with that. But there is absolutely employees that you talk to who have arranged their lives around trying to make sure their kid does not get COVID. And the more that we can do to make parents feel safe to send their kids to school, the more we can get back to not the pre-pandemic world, because that's never coming back, but something where people are not having to arrange their life around their kids' health in quite the same way.
All right, Tim, well, I know you've got to take off, so thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
You as well. All right, Fred, I want to get your take on this as well while we're waiting for some listeners to call in. So what do you think is going on here with this whole mask mandate fight?
Well, it's what has become now a classic argument. I have the right to kill myself, and I want you to have the right to kill yourself. The problem is that the school board, as with any governmental entity, has the responsibility to protect all of its citizens under its charge. And in the school board's case, that has to do with teachers and with students. They have a responsibility for them to work in a safe, healthy environment, and that's what they've sought to do. But based upon what they put in place, this whole thing could be over within a week or two as soon as they reach the minimum standards that the school board has set for COVID cases to go down. So this could all be a moot point as far as the school board is concerned. It's just unfortunate that we have some people, a number of people, not some people, who simply don't want to have any restraints on their ability to do whatever they want to do. And they get this backed up, of course, by our governor. But I think, thankfully, to many citizens' credit, the school board has, through their superintendent, has put together a plan that can work, that is moderate, and will be over within a period of time as soon as they reach the threshold for cases within the system. And I think they're well on the way to doing that. We're seeing that citywide at all the hospitals with the cases going down. But, we're just into this argument where people will not, they simply are headstrong in believing that they have the right to kill themselves. And that's okay, just as long as your right to kill yourself doesn't impose upon my right not to be killed by you because you're breathing on me, or your kid is breathing on me, or your kid is breathing on the teacher. That's the problem. You can do whatever you want, but you don't have your freedoms end at my nose. And that's where we are right now. And I think, thankfully, the board has taken some steps that will get them there in good stead. This will pass over and as soon as we get through the 2022 elections.
Yeah, this is certainly a heated issue, and I think we're all hoping that things settle down as soon as possible when it comes to COVID and students can get back to in-person learning and not have to constantly be worried about this. Let's go to some callers. We have Janet in Jacksonville Beach. Good morning, Janet. Thanks for giving us a call.
Good morning. I have two things to speak about. One is that I don't think the things that are talked about nearly enough, well, besides trash, that's talked about, but the public library downtown is now apparently closed indefinitely, as is MoCA, because of this Regeneron testing and the buildings are contaminated. And so they've had to close down a public service because of this thing that needs to be done for people when they could just get a vaccine and not have to do it. One of my friends can't get materials for her master's degree because she can't get through to that part of the department. Another one of my friends can't do genealogy research because of that's closed down. People gather there to use the libraries, use the computers, and there's just a myriad of things that the public library downtown is used for. And the second thing, and I think we need to talk about that as another public problem that is not being supported by our government. And the second thing I want to say is Fred Matthew for mayor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your call, Janet. I appreciate that. Fred, do you have something to announce today?
My wife would put me under 6 feet under if I tried that. But she's got a point. The library should never have been a place for testing. The library should never have been a place for testing a drug for checking and for getting people tested on a drug that, as she said, you could have taken the vaccine and been done with it. We've got this big open space on Main Street, going up to the Main Street Bridge. If you wanted to give people this shot, you could have set up the same tents in that big space where the homeless used to hang out at, and put in and do the thing there. Why close off the library, for goodness sake, and so that people can't have access to what she's doing? Research, kids can't get in there. I mean, it made absolutely no sense. But again, this is the government that we elected, folks. And everything but the vaccine. So let's try Regeneron. Let's try this horse medicine that everybody wants to do. Let's do that. Why don't we have it all out there in everything instead of getting the vaccine and being done with it? It's just shameful what some of our elected officials have brought us to in the name of being contrary to Washington.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that the library is in a very central location that's easy to access, but it's such a heavily used feature. So it seems like an odd choice, especially, I mean, I live in Arlington, which is not too far from downtown. I mean, there's lots of abandoned buildings out there. There's the Regency Mall. I feel like there's lots of space there where they could have put this up. So it certainly seems like an odd choice to have this set up at the library, to take that away from residents. But
one thing I just learned this week in talking to the city and got the latest numbers of how many Regeneron doses they've given, and over the past 3 weeks, that number has fallen to about 80 a day. When it first opened, it was about 300 a day, and I haven't gotten clarification yet about whether that is due to demand or the supply, since Biden cut down Florida's supply. But at this point, it's less than 80 people on average getting this dose each day, and our entire library is shut down. And while Regeneron has proven to be effective, is the cost to the community of not having a library worth the just 80 that are getting the dose still?
Well, DeSantis talked about this week, and he said that they're going to scale back the Regeneron centers because there's less and less demand, and they're going to think about distribution. So the library should be deoccupied in the next few weeks based on those usage numbers. He even said that it didn't matter that Biden cut the supply because we don't need as much anyway. So, he walked back from where he was a couple of weeks ago rhetorically, bashing the White House for not giving him the life-saving drug. But, long story short, the library will be reactivated again, and they didn't use the library anywhere else, just Jacksonville. Jacksonville got the first one, and for better or for worse, that was the location they chose, but they didn't make that mistake twice for a reason. I guess we were just the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak.
All right, well, we are running out of time here, so let's move on to our lightning round. All right, well, I will go first since this is kind of personal to me. So today is the release of the State of the St. Johns River Report. I believe Dr. Pinto over at Jacksonville University will be wrapping up his presentation right now at the Environmental Symposium, which is being held at UNF and is put on by the city's Environmental Protection Board. I will have a story summarizing the findings from that report out later today and next week. Adapt, our digital magazine focused on climate change, will be producing 2 events on Wednesday focused on this year's River Report. So go to wjct.org/events to find out more about those events and to register. Claire, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm very excited about a new newsletter that WJCT is putting out. I've seen some samples, and I believe that's starting on Monday, and that's part of WJCT's new newsletter project, Jacksonville Today.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that as well. AG, what do you have going on?
I'm looking at the Jaguars game Sunday across the pond. Urban Meyer didn't fly back from the last road game in Cincinnati. He had to clear his head, see the grandchildren and all that. Let's see if he flies back with the team this time or not.
All right, and Fred?
Well, this morning, it should have started around 8:30. It appears that the Northside Coalition, Ben Frazier's group, is meeting with some city council members this morning to once again see if they can resurrect, keep alive the idea of a citizen review board. Of course, we can give them some credit. I guess you can say they got some success in getting monuments to come down. The daughters of the Civil War monument is eventually coming down. The mayor's announced that. We'll just see if the city council is going to fund it. But it'd be interesting to see if they can get some movement on a citizen review board, in spite of the opposition from the sheriff's office and the police union.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our listeners will be keeping a close eye on that story as it develops. Thank you, Claire, Fred, AG, and Tim, who had to leave a little earlier. We appreciate you being on with us this morning. And in just a moment, healing the First Coast through an innovative instrument called the handpan. We'll be right back. You're listening to First Coast Connect. I'm Brendan Rivers, sitting in for Melissa Ross. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville.
On the next Fresh Air, the Netflix miniseries Made is adapted from the memoir by Stephanie Land, chronicling her life as a single mother after fleeing an abusive relationship. She cleaned houses for a living, lived temporarily in a homeless shelter with her daughter, and eventually went to college and became a writer. We'll feature our interview with Land. Join us.
Today at 1 on WJCT News 89.9.
Lawmakers say they're making good progress investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
We're not messing around.
And say they'll use the full force of the law on those who stand in their way.
If we can't trust elections to resolve who will govern, that just paves the way for violence.
Also, supply chains, wind farms, and nuclear secrets wrapped up in a peanut butter sandwich. Next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Musician John Guinta is healing the First Coast through an innovative instrument called the handpan. His company, Streams of Sound, plays this unique music across the community. He'll be playing at tomorrow's Jacks by Jacks Literary Arts Festival. Melissa Ross asked Guinta what makes the handpan so special. Let's take a listen to that conversation.
It looks somewhat like a spaceship and has an ethereal sound to it. It fits in your lap, and anyone, really anyone, can play it. The handpan is a newer instrument that is sweeping the globe. Its sounds are melodic, soothing, and just plain beautiful.
Tell us a little bit about Streams of Sound and also this instrument that you fell in love with, the handpan.
Sure. So Streams of Sound is a nonprofit 501c3 registered nonprofit operating here in Jacksonville. Well, it was founded here in Jacksonville, but we're actually expanding into other parts of Florida, and we've just opened up a chapter up in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas as well. And our mission is to bring healing sound into medical facilities and other facilities of wellness and healing in the community. And the instrument that we use is, it's called a handpan. It's a relatively new musical instrument that was invented in the year 2000. So it's kind of hard to describe it, but it's made out of metal. And it's similar to a Caribbean steel pan, but very different in a lot of ways. It produces a very relaxing sound, and that's what captured me when I first heard it. As I think I've mentioned before, I'm a retired air traffic controller, so when I recognized the relaxation that came from this instrument, it just captured me and made me feel at ease. And so I I focused on that and basically started bringing the instrument into the hospitals. So for a few years, I played in yoga studios all around the United States, and always got feedback that it was, very relaxing, and people were very happy that I'd come, and so it was it was attractive to a lot of people, and so I thought I should, try to use it in a way that could help others.
That helps
so
others.
So that's
And-
kind of what happened.
It's kind of funny to think that you were an air traffic controller. I really can't think of a more stressful job than that. and now you are engaged in bringing comfort and stress relief and relaxation to people.
Sure.
And when people go to your website, streamsofsound.org, they can see that you are doing these sound baths all over town, at churches, at hospitals, other locations. In this pandemic, especially, John, this is just what the doctor ordered because, of course,
thank you,
hospitals are overwhelmed with COVID patients. The healthcare staff are stressed. Everybody's stressed. What kind of reactions do you get when you do this in healthcare settings?
Well, like I said, everybody seems to be happy that we're there. So the sound is relaxing not only to the people that we're directly using it with, like patients, but the staff themselves are very. They get a lot from it as well, and it's just a very pleasant sound. It's kind of hard to describe it, but it's a very rhythmic, melodic sound that is entrancing, or it entrains people into kind of almost a hypnotic, meditative state. It's hard to really describe it, but like I said, it's something new, and it's almost uncanny that it came out when it did, and now we have it right now in the middle of all this turmoil that we seem to find ourselves in, and so I figured what better use for it than that, to bring it in places where people are trying to relax. And as an ex-air traffic controller, I know that relaxation is really important for holistic, for your health. It's just another factor in good health. So I just started exploring opportunities in the medical community, and then I found that it was not only wanted there, but in the faith-based community, and we still play in yoga studios, and that's kind of how we get some of our funding. I mean, we've been operating for a year and a half, and we haven't even gotten a grant or anything like that. So we have a nice little way of supporting ourselves and the community at the same time, and we do it all by donation. So there's really no challenge to people. We meet people wherever they are, so it's really a kind of a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. People can donate and learn more at your website, streamsofsound.org. And this kind of music, these kinds of sound baths really do operate at a deep level in the brain. They do affect your brain waves. They do affect your central nervous system in such a positive way. This is real therapy. And by the way, John, he'll also be playing the handpan at the upcoming Jacks by Jacks Literary Arts Festival, so you can check him out there too. John Guinta, and it's Streams of Sound. Thanks for the relaxing sounds.
All right, that's our program. Thanks to all of our guests and callers. Our senior producer is Heather Schatz. Josh Torres is our director. Catherine Hobbs is our associate producer. Our news director is Jessica Palumbo. If you have questions or comments about First Coast Connect, you can send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. I'm Brendan Rivers, sitting in for Melissa Ross, and you're listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. We'll be back on Monday at 9 a.m., but if you missed anything, you can listen to our rebroadcast at 8 p.m., and you can find today's show at wjct.org and on your favorite podcast platform. Have a great weekend.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor